Okay, now it is already known. So good afternoon and welcome back to second class online class session. And as we have already discussed about the course structure of second semester in the previous lecture. So this is second course ENM 6212. It is on Shakespeare. The complete paper will be on William Shakespeare. So here I will focus only on block one, that is a Midsummer Night's Dream. See, if we discuss like in-depth study or in-depth discussion, if we do in-depth discussion, it will take like days and days and weeks and weeks, right? We should try to uh, discuss in a brief way, right? Without missing any points. So we shall do that here. Okay. So now, as I said, uh, these courses, I mean, 6212, paper number two, the course number two, this on Shakespeare. And our, you know, topic of discussion is today's topic of discussion is plot one amid summer night's dream. Okay. So now before that, let's move into the lecture contents. First, we shall uh, have the course overview. What are the courses other than block one? What about block two, three, four? All the things. We shall look into that. Okay. We shall have the course overview. And then units breakdown. Okay. Units breakdown of block one. That is, there are five units. We shall look into that. And then we shall discuss about learning goals, that is objectives and outcomes. And then we shall discuss all the units one by one, from unit one to unit five of block one. And then I shall again give you questions to check your progress. Then we shall conclude the lecture and then also tell you about next lecture's topic. Now we shall move on to course overview of ENM 6212. So there are four blocks. Okay. The first block deals with Every Night Summer's Dream, and block two deals with King Lear, and the block three deals with The Tempest, and block four deals with Hamlet. So this course introduces you to uh, Shakespeare's major dramatic works. Okay. And the plays represent different genres, including like comedy, tragedy, and romances, right? Romance, and I also help you, understand, Shakespeare's dramatic art and also themes, language, and theoretical techniques. Okay, so this is all about course overview of ENM 6212 Shakespeare. Now let's breakdown of today's lecture. That is all. Block one, A Midnight Summer Night's Dream. That is all. Uh, today's point of discussion. So unit one, unit one discusses Act one, sentences one to two, and unit two discusses Act two, sentences one to two. Act three, unit three discusses Act three, sentences one to two, and unit four discusses Act four, sentences one to two, and unit five discusses Act five, scene one. Okay, so these units, what traces the development of the play from the from the conflict, among lovers in Athens to the magical conclusion in the forest, and finally, you know, the resolutions and marriages. Okay, so now let's dive into the unit one. Sorry, before that, let's look into learning goals. So again, there are four objectives and four outcomes for this lecture. So first, just introduce you to the objective is to introduce you to Shakespearean comedy, that is At Midnight Summer's Dream, comedy through the play. See, what I'm trying to say is, uh, through this you'll be introduced you to comedy through a play, amid summer's night dream, and also to examine the dramatic structure and plot development of the play, and to analyze major characters and themes such as love, basic illusion, and transformation, and to understand Shakespeare's use of language, humor, and what dramatic technique. And as for course outcomes, you'll be able to explain the plot and dramatic structure of a midnight summer's dream. A midsummer's night's dream, and also able to analyze. You'll be able to analyze the major characters and their roles in the play, and you'll also be able to identify themes such as romantic love, basic jealousy, and transformation, and you'll also be able to critically interpret Shakespeare's use of comedy and dramatic devices. Okay, so now let's dive into Unit 1, Act 1, Since 1 to 2. So, this particular act it covers what? Act 1, Since 1 to 2, right? So, before we talk about what happens in Act 1, let me give you a brief uh, background of William Shakespeare himself, because uh, context always help, right? So William Shakespeare was born in 16th century, that is 1564 in Stratford upon England, and died in 1616. The same topic, I think, the same ideas of it is available in. It's also there in drama in English. That is in second semester PA. I have also introduced to them about this. So similarly, I'm also introducing again. And he wrote approximately about 38 or something, 38, 37 to 38 something. Plays. He wrote. He wrote uh, it is approximate 37 or 38 plays for drama, and 154 sonnets. Okay, and his plays are broadly classified into this category, like comedies, tragedies, or histories, and also there are some examples of like tragic comedies also. Okay, so A Midnight Summer's Dream belongs to the comedies, and it is believed to have been written around 1595, in between 1595 and 1596. So for more accurate, you can do more further research on that. Okay, so this is one of Shakespeare's most popular and frequent performed plays. So now let us look at Act One. So the play opens in Athens, the famous ancient city of Greece. So where we are immediately introduced to Duke Theseus, the ruler of Athens, and Hippolyta, the queen of Amazons, who is soon to become his wife. So I may not be perfect at the pronunciation because I'm not actually good at the pronunciation of the such names as like Greece names or something. Like Theseus or something like that. Okay, Theseus and Hippolyta are preparing for their wedding, which will take place in 4 days, right? So this opening sets up the goal of the play. How it is a goal of authority, order, and social rules. So adults represents civilizations, law, and structure. So very soon we are introduced to the central conflict of the play, right? The major conflict, and a noble name like Aegeus enters. Aegeus or Aegeus enters. For better pronunciation, please look into the pronunciation dictionary also. Okay. Enters with his daughter Hermia and two young men. Okay, there is Lysander or Demetrius. So Aeschylus is angry. He wants, his daughter's Hermia to marry Demetrius. But Hermia is in love with, Lysander and refuses to obey his father. So this is a classic conflict that Shakespeare uses brilliantly. So the conflict, as you can see here, between parental authority and individual desire, between social law and personal life. So Duke Theseus tells Hermias the harsh reality. According to Athenian law, she must either obey her father and marry Demetrius, become a nun, and give up all pleasures of life, or face death. So this is a very serious situation. Shakespeare presents us immediately with the cruelty of rigid social laws and how they affect human lives and feelings. But life finds a way. Lysander and Hermia, make a secret plan. They will run away into the nearby forest and escape to a place where Athenian law cannot reach them. They also, tells their friend Helena about this plan. Okay, excuse me. Uh, Now Helena is very significant. Helena, loved Demetrius deeply, but Demetrius does not love her. He only wants Hermia. So Helena, hoping to earn uh, Demetrius' attention and affection, decides to reveal the plan to him. So Act One, Scene Two introduces that's all about Act One. Okay. So Act One to Scene Two introduces us to a completely different and delightful group of characters. A group of working class craftsmen, sometimes. So a group of working class craftsmen, sometimes called the mechanicals. So they include uh, bottom, the weaver, Quince, the carpenter, flute, bellows mender, and snout, the thinker, and snout designer. If you need further information, you can. I'll give you more details. And Starveling, the tailor, right? So these men are, preparing to perform a play called Pyramus and Thisbe for the wedding celebration of Duke Theseus. So this creates what we call a comic subplot, a secondary storyline that runs alongside the main plot and adds humor and entertainment. So in Unit 1 alone, Shakespeare sets up multiple storylines. The wedding of Theseus, the Hippolyta, right? And the conflict among the four young lovers, and the comic rehearsals of the craftsmen. This is excellent dramatic craftsmanship. Please note that this three threats clearly. Try to keep these three threats clearly in your mind. So because this threat will weave together beautifully as the play progresses. Okay, something went wrong. Uh, Now, in Unit 2, this is where the play takes a truly magical turns. In Unit 2, since 1 and 2. Because the setting shifts from the city of Athens to an enchanted forest. So the forest uh, in a midsummer's night dream is not an ordinary forest. It is a magical, supernatural space where the normal rules of human world do not apply. So this, contrast between Edens, which represent law, order, reason, and the forest, which represent magic, imaginations, and chaos. So it's one of the most important, structural features of the entire play. So Shakespeare uses this contrast to explores ideas, about love, reason, and the unpredictable nature of human emotions. So in this forest, we are introduced to the fairy world. Here we meet some of the most memorable characters in all of Shakespeare. The first is Oberon, okay, and the king of the pharaohs. I have not included all the characters' names in here because it will look so mess. That's why, okay. I'll just tell you virtually. So the first person is who? Oberon. So the king of pharaohs. He's powerful and proud and sometimes jealous. The second is either Titania or Titania. Okay, the queen of pharaohs. She's beautiful, graceful, and equally proud. And then there is Puck, also known as Robin, uh, Goodfellow, who is Oberon's, mischievous and playful, fairy servant. So Puck is one of the most lovable and entertaining character in the play. He's clever, witty, and sometimes careless, and that carelessness creates most of the comedy. Now there is a quarreling, quarreling, between Oberon and Titania. What are they arguing about? They are fighting over a young Indian boy, an orphan, uh, whose mother was a devotee of Titania. Oberon wants this boy as his page, that is his personal attendant. Okay, but Titania refuses to give him up. This quarrel between the fairy king and queen has disturbed the natural world. It has caused floods, storms, and chaos in nature. So even in the magical world, conflict and jealousy exist. So Oberon decides to teach Titania a lesson. He sends Puck to fetch a magical flower, love and idleness. A flower of Zeus, when dropped into the eyes of a sleeping person, makes them, fall in love with the very first creature they see upon, waking. So Oberon plans, to apply this juice to Titania's eyes while she sleeps, so that she falls in love with something ridiculous and embarrassing. So uh, now Oberon also witnessed, Demetrius behaving rudely towards Helena in the forest. Helena is following Demetrius like a faithful dog, begging for his love, But Demetrius respect her, not respect, rejects her cruelly. Oberon feels sympathy for Helena and instructs Puck to apply the love. So that is the love potion to the eyes of the Athenians young man, meaning Demetrius, so that he will love Helena. So, but here is where comic confusion begins. Puck makes a mistake. He finds Lysander sleeping in the forest, another Athenian young man, and applies the potion to Lysander's eyes instead of Demetrius. Instead of Demetrius. So when Lysander, who when Lysander wakes up, he sees Helena standing before him and immediately falls madly in love with her. After that, because that Pulse mystically applied, he was supposed to apply on Demetrius, but instead mystically applies to Lysander. That's why when he wakes up, that when Lysander wakes up, he sees Helena standing before him. So immediately he falls madly in love with her. Lysander, who makes deeply in love with Hermia just hours ago, now completely forgets her and now starts pursuing, Helena. This mistake by Parks set the stage for a chain of misunderstanding, confusion, and also comedy, right? So the theme here is very important. Shakespeare is showing us that love is blind. Love does not always follow reason or choice. Just as the magic potion changes the lover's affections without logic, real human love is also often irrational and unpredictable. Okay, so please keep this theme in mind as we continue. Now, let's move on to Act 3. What happens? So, this axis is like one of the core of the play, like heart of the play. It is the act of maximum confusion, maximum comedy, maximum magical chaos. If Act One set up the problems and Act Two introduce the magic, and then Act Three takes everything to its extreme and entertaining point. Okay, so now let us begin with one of the most famous moment in the entire play. So the transformation of Nick Bottom. So the craftsmen who have entered the forest to rehearse their play, Tiramos and Tesbe. Okay, so in secret, I mean they're trying to play their rehearse their play. Travis, without anybody known, right? Knows, right? Like that is secretly trying to rehearse the play. Piramos and the play called Piramos and Thisbe. So actually, this why it is secret because it is away from the eyes of the core, where they are actually trying to play this, entertain this, act on this, play called Piramos and Thisbe. So what happened during that? While they are rehearsing, Puck, that mischievous fairy, spots them. For entertainment, Puck decides to play a trick. He transforms the head of Big Bottom, the waver, into the head of a donkey. So Bottom now has a donkey's head, setting on his human shoulder, right? Shoulders. But he himself does not realize it. When the other craftsmen sees him, they run away in terror, in fear, screaming. So Bottom is completely confused. What happened? Wondering why everyone is running away from him. They're supposed to do rehearsal, right? On the play they're about to act, rehearse and tell me. But they run away, right? After seeing him, half donkey, half and half human, right? So this is where the Titania enters. She has been put to sleep earlier, and Oberon has applied, the love potion to her eyes. When she wakes up, the very first thing she sees is Bottom with his donkey's hat and uh, you know, and the rest of the part is human, right? On the head area is donkey. And immediately under the spell of the potion, she fell passionately and desperately in love with him. She showers him with a compliment, calls him beautiful, comments her courage to serve him, and refuses to let him live. So this scene is wildly comic, right? The queen of the fairy world, the most beautiful and graceful, creature in the forest, is hopelessly in love with a foolish weaver wearing a donkey's head, right? So this scene works on two levels. First, it's simply hilarious. It is Shakespeare's, it is Shakespeare's comedies at its finest. But second, it makes a deep, point about the nature of love and beauty. When we are under the spell of love, we do not see things as they are. We see what our emotion wants us to see. Titania, calls Bottom beautiful. She finds him charming and beautiful or wonderful. This is Shakespeare's satirical comment on how love distorts our perception of reality. Now, let us look at the situation when uh, the four young lovers, which becomes even more tangled in Act 3. Remember, at the end of the Act 2, Lysander had already been mystically enchanted and had fallen in love with Helena, right? And in Act 3, Puck, trying to correct his mistake, applies the potion to Demetrius as well. Now, both, Lysander and Demetrius are madly in love with Helena. They compete for her attention, they argue, and they even challenge each other to fight. Wait, okay, just a minute. Uh, but Helena does not believe them. She thinks that they are both mocking her. She says, how can both of you suddenly love me? When just yesterday Lysander loved Hermia and Demetrius also loved Hermia. She feels that uh, this is cruel joke being played against her. And then there is Hermia. She utterly heartbroken and confused. Why has Lysander, her beloved, suddenly turned cold and started chasing Helena? She confronts Helena, convinced that Helena has somehow stolen Lysander's heart away, in a hard way. Right? A quarrel breaks out between the two women who were once close friends. The key theme of uh, Act Act Three is this: love is irrational and unpredictable. I have already said, right. Under the influence of magical potion, which is also a symbol of the irrational nature of human love. All four people are confused, jealous, and conflict. So their orderly affections, have collapsed into total disorder. So this is both the comedy and the deeper meaning of this act. Shakespeare reminds us, with great humor, that love does not always make sense. Okay. So now let's move on to Unit 4. So here we have arrived at Unit 4, which covers, Act 4, Senses 1 and 2. So after the chaos, confusions, and laughter of Act 3, Act 4 brings a sense of calm and restoration. So the music begins uh, to be, undone. Order starts to return, right? So this is the turning point of the play. The moment when the storm begins to settle. So let us begin with Titanian bottom. At the start of Act 4, um, we see Titania completely under the spell of the love potion, still adoring Bottom. She treats him like a king. She orders her uh, fairies, peace blossoms, cobweb, moth, mustard seed, to wait upon him, to feed him, and care for him. Bottom enjoying all his royal treatment. Requests honey, scratches his head with his donkey ears, and happily accepts the love of Fairy Queen. It is a wonderfully absurd and comic image. The Fairy Queen and a donkey-headed weaver sitting together in a bower of flowers. But Oberon has been watching all of this, and now he feels that his plan has gone far enough. He takes pity on Titania. He also realizes that he has already, obtained the Indian boy from her, which was his original goal. So Oberon decides to release Titania from, enchantment. So he applies the counter charm to her eyes, and when Titania wakes up and sees Bottom clearly, a man with a dog is head, she is horrified and deeply embarrassed. And she cannot believe that she falls in love with such a creature. She says it all felt like a dream. So this is a very, uh, important moment, and thematically, you know, Titania's experience mirrors, the experience of four young lovers. They too accept irrationally under the influence of, magical potion. They too wake up, and not fully understood what happened to them. The sense of embarrassment uh, and the confusion when the spell breaks is a key part of the play's message about the nature of love and illusion. Now, Parks also, removes the enchantment from Lysander. When the spell is lifted, the four young lovers are finally properly paired. Lysander loves Hermione again, and all as he always did, and Demetrius, interestingly, continues to love Helena because Puck does not remove his enchantment. The play leaves Demetrius under the spell, which is technically means that his love for uh, Helena, though self-seeming, was created by magic. This raises an interesting question for discussion. Is Demetrius' love for Helena authentic? Try to find out. Okay, we will return to discussions later. Anyway, now another side, Duke, Theseus and Hippolyta arrive in the forest in the early morning for a hunting expedition. It's an expedition, and they discover the four young lovers asleep on the ground. Uh, Theseus is moved by the scenes and decides to overrule Aegeus' wishes. He gives, the lovers his blessing and couples himself, like himself and Hippolyta, Lysander, Hermia, and Demetrius and Helena will be married together in a triple wedding ceremony. So this is a crucial moment of resolution. The harsh Athenian law that threatened Hermia with death at the beginning of the play is set aside by the Duke's generous authority. The love and harmony triumph over, rigid law. Act for, seem to briefly, returns to the craftsman who was anxious because autumn was disappeared just before their scheduled performance. So their honor was censored without bottom. So their play cannot go on. But bottom soon returned. He's back to normal and ready to perform. So Act 4 is all about the movement from disorders back to order. So the magic is undone. The mistakes are corrected, and the characters prepared to return to Athens for celebrations. So it is the calm after the storm. Okay, so that's all about Act 4. So now in Act 5, what do we have? Sorry, in Act 5, the final, this is the and also this is the final unit of law. Okay, so the last act, and this is the last act, and also the concluding movement of a midsummer night's dream. So Act 5 is the celebration, resolution, and reflection. Everything that was disordered has now been put right. The lovers are correctly paired, and the fairy world is at peace, and the human world is ready to celebrate. So the act opens with Theseus and Hippolytus discussing the extraordinary tale they heard from four young lovers about what happened in the forest, the magic, the confusion, the fairies. Right? Theseus is skeptical. He says that the story is told by lovers and lunatic and the poets all come from overactive imaginations. He does not believe in a fairies or magic. But Hippolyta responds thoughtfully. She says that the lover stories all fit so consistently that there might be something more to them than mere imagination. So this short exchange between Theseus and Hippolyta is one of the most philosophically rich moment in the play. So it raises deep question: what is real? What is imagination? What is the relationship between dreams and reality? So then comes the theatrical highlights of the act. The performance of Pyramus and Thisbe by the craftsmen. This is selects their playing from a list of entertainment options for the wedding night. His courtiers warned him that the craftsmen are uneducated workers who are not trained actors. But this is generously says he will receive their offering with kindness and imagination. So the final, the sorry, the performance itself is brilliantly comic. The Brahmins are, nervous. They misunderstand theoretical, convention, and they perform with great sincerity, but complete lack of skills. Bottom plays the role of a Pyramus and the hero. Fruit plays the artist, being the heroine. Snow's plays the wall between them. He literally stands there with his fingers apart to represent a crack in the wall, startling, place, moonshine, holding a lantern and a bush, and Snuff plays the lion. But he also so worried about frightening the ladies that he repeatedly reminds the audience that he is actually not Snuff the joiner, not a real lion. So the royal audience, the Tessius, Hippolyta, and the lovers, watched a great amusement, making witty comments uh, through the performance. The play ends with Pyramus killing himself, and then Thisbe killing himself, and a deeply tragic story, but performs so incompetently that it produces nothing but laughter. This is, Shakespeare's famous I suppose you also have heard about this play within the play, a play inside a play. It serves multiple purposes. It provides comedy. It reflects the themes of the main play, and it also makes a comment on the nature of the theatrical performance itself. So after the entertainment, the three couples retire for the night. Right, the stage then becomes magical, silent space of the fairy world once more. Oberon and Titania enter with their fairies to bless the house and the marriage. They dance and sing, blessing the newlywed couples with happiness, health, and beautiful children. So this blessing by the fairies give the play its final sense of wonder and enchantment. Okay, so and then comes the most famous moment, Park's epilogue. Park stepped forward and speaks directly to the audience. He says that if the play has offended anyone, they should simply think of it as a dream. He apologizes on behalf of all the actors and asks for the audience applause. So this epilogue is brilliant because it breaks the boundary between the play and the audience. And it reinforces the central theme of the entire play, the theme of dream and illusion. Was the forest at once real or a dream? Was the magic true or imagined? Like it invites us to stay comfortably in that beautiful ambiguity. So the play's final message is a message delivered through Act 5 is one of joy, reconciliation, love, and wonder. So three couples are married. The fairies bless the world, and the audience uh, is left with a smile and a sense of having witnessed something magical. So with this, we complete 5 units of Block One. That is A Midsummer Night's Dream by William Shakespeare. Okay, now we shall move on to the questions to check your progress. Or how much you have understood? How much you have understood about this lecture, about this topic or block? So these are the questions. Please attempt to answer them. Okay. First question is discuss the major conflict introduced in Act 1 of A Midsummer Night's Dream. And the second question is the magical love portion creates confusion. How magical love portion creates confusion among the lovers. And our third question, you try to explain the significance of craftsman's play, Pyramus and Chisbe in a comedy. Okay, these are the questions you have to solve. Now, let's move on to the conclusion. So, in today's lecture, what have we completed? We have completed Shakespeare's comedy amid a summer night's dream, right? So, We went through all 5 units of block one, right? Covering all 5 acts of the play. Now let me give you let me show you. Let me give you a uh, brief summary or clear summary of what journey we have uh, taken today. Okay, so what have we in Act One? What have we done in Unit One, Act One? We are introduced to the place, opening wall, the city of Athens, the weddings, preparation of Theseus and Hippolyta, the lovers' conflict, right? Hermia, Lysander, Demetrius, and Helena, and the comic preparation of the craftsmen. And we saw how the rigid laws of Athens threatens Hermia's freedoms to love, right? So in Act Two, we enter the enchanted forest in a fairy world, Oberon and Titania and the mischievous spark. And we saw how a quarrel between the fairy king and the queen set a stage for magical, interference, and how Puck's mistake with love potion became comedy of errors among the lovers. And Act Three, we reached the height of uh, comic confusion. Bottom was transformed with a donkey's head. Titania falls in love with him, and all four lovers were hopelessly mixed up, right? And this act demonstrated Shakespeare's, central idea that love is irrational and unpredictable. In Act 4, we saw the restoration of order. Oberon removed Titania's enchantment. Box corrected the lover's confusion. And Duke, Theseus gave his, blessing to the three couples. And the storms of confusion begins to settle. Okay. And finally, in Unit 5, Act 5, uh, uh, there is a celebrations as the three marriages took place. The craftsmen, performed their play. What was the name of the play? Do you remember? Huh? Do you remember? The students? Something Piramos and Tisbe, right? Okay. Uh, and now, and also, after what happened after their performance after their performance, the fairies bless the house, right? And also the park deliveries, memorable epilogue reminding us that this was all perhaps just a dream, something like that. So that's it. The central themes we have identified across all five are these, like irrationality of romantic love, the conflict between the regions and the imagination, the role of dreams and illusion versus waking reality, and the role of magic in transforming human experiences, and a healing power of laughter and comedy. Okay, so I want you to, I want you to, go through these things, go through this, play properly, go through the SLM, read it, and try to understand better. Okay, so now with this, uh, I would like to, complete block one on A Midsummer's Night's Dream. Okay, and in the next lecture, we shall move on to block two. That is King Lear, the same writer that is on by Shakespeare, one of the greatest tragedy. They said we shall focus on tragedy. So, like see in block one, we see after the enchantment and laughter of the comedy. Now we will step into the darker, more intense, you know, and intense world of tragic drama, from comedy to tragedy. Okay, so please uh, go through the SLM. Okay, when you attend the class, so that you understand better. All right. So, uh, do you have anything to say or like doubts? If you have anything, if you have doubt or something, if you do not have any doubt or so, if you do not have any doubt, questions, we can stop here, right? Okay. Thank you so much. And see you in the next class.